Hello, algebra students. Welcome back to my living room. We are learning how to solve quadratic equations in this unit. This is unit 7. All right, so in our last video we learned about what a quadratic equation is and how to set it up in standard form. All right, and in this video we're going to take our first leap into actually solving a quadratic equation. All right, so that's our objective. We're going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. All right, and the first type we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a situation where we have ax squared plus bx, but we have no c. In other words, c is equal to 0. Equal to 0. All right, so without further ado, let's take a look at an example. So I have 4x squared minus 8x equals 0. All right? So what do you think the first step is that we're going to take in solving this quadratic equation? Well, did you guess, make sure it's in standard form? Yes, you would have guessed right. Right? That's what we've been talking about. It's got to be in standard form. So let's go ahead and write that down here. So the first step is make sure it's in standard form. All right? So here's the question. Is this in standard form? Well, let's see. It's in descending order. It is set equal to 0. A is greater than 0. It's positive. And c just happens to be 0, so that's okay. This is in standard form. Terrific. Okay, so second step. Well, if I take a look at this, I noticed something. I noticed that this left side of the equation has something in common. Do you see what it has in common? What the left side has in common? Well, it has a few things in common, actually. First of all, look at the 4 and look at the 8. What does a 4 and an 8 have in common? They both have 4s, don't they? That has 1 4, and this has 2 4s. So my greatest common factor, then, is 4. However, there's more. This guy has an x squared, and this guy has an x. Do these two have in common a variable? Yes, they do. They both have an x. This guy happens to have 2, this guy happens to have 1. So they both have an x in common. So 4x would be the greatest common factor of the left side of this equation. Right? So now what we can do is we can kind of just do the distribution property in reverse. All right? So now I got to think, okay, 4x times what is 4x squared? Well, it would just be, we need another x in there, don't we? Because x times x is x squared. Okay. Now, okay, 4x times what is negative 8x? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. Right? So I need a 2 in there. Happens to be negative. Okay, now what about that x? Do I need to supply an x here, like I did over here? Well, x times x is x squared. I don't want an x squared. Right? So if I just leave it like that, 4x times 2 is just going to be 8x. Right? This x has already been provided for over here in my greatest common factor. Okay, so what did I just do here? 4x times the quantity x minus 2. What did I just do to this polynomial equation, this quadratic equation? Well, I factored it, didn't I? I expressed it as a product. 4x times quantity x minus 2. So that is going to be our second step, is to factor. Okay, now can I factor this any more? Can I factor x minus 2? No, they have nothing in common, do they? Okay, so I'm done factoring in this case. So in this case, all I had to do was factor out a greatest common factor. We'll see in the next example that we're going to need to do more. Okay, so now, oh, I forgot something. Set that equal to 0, right? This is an equation. Okay, now how to solve this equation? Well, you need to learn a principle here. This is a second degree equation, so we can't use first degree equation solving skills by themselves to do this. We need some second degree equation solving skills. All right, so I want to show you something. Let's say if I have two numbers, A, B, all right, I mean, this could be anything, 3 times 2, 9 times 8, whatever. I have two numbers that are multiplied together, and I have them set equal to 0. What do you know about A or B? Pause the video for a moment and see if you can think about it. What do you know? What do we know about A or B? Well, if I'm multiplying two numbers and the result is 0, the only way I get 0 is if one of these two numbers is 0, right? We all learned our zeros. That was the first thing we learned in elementary school when we were learning our times tables, right? Was our zeros. Because anything times 0 is 0. Okay? So that means that something over here has to be 0 for this to be 0 on the right side. So if AB equals 0, then what? Then A equals 0, all right, because 0 times B is 0. Or what else? B equals 0. All right? In other words, A times 0 is still 0. Of course, they both can be 0 as well. All right? 0 times 0 is also 0. Okay, so if I have two numbers multiplied together and the result is 0, I know that one or both of the numbers are 0. We call this the principle of 0 products. We call it that because, well, products, that means multiplication. This is multiplication. And 0, because the result is 0, right? 0 products. Okay, so we can use this principle right here. If you'll notice, I have two numbers multiplied together, don't I? I have 4x multiplied by x minus 2. All right? So if I let 4x just pretend like that's A, all right? And I'll let x minus 2, that's going to be B. I have AB equals 0, don't I? Exactly what I have over here. I have two numbers, or two terms, multiplied together, giving me 0. So I can use the principle of 0 products. Well, okay, if this is true, if I'm multiplying something with equal to 0, that means A has to be 0. Well, how do I make it 0? Well, I just set it equal to 0. Okay, so I'm going to make A equal to 0. Well, what's A? A is 4x. So I'm going to set 4x, and that's got to be 0, right? A has got to be 0. Or B has to be 0. Well, what's B? This whole thing is B, x minus 2. X minus 2 equals 0. All right, those are my two choices. So if AB equals 0, then A equals 0 or B equals 0. See how that works? It's the principle of 0 products. Okay, it's a second degree equation solving skill. Okay, now what we have is two linear equations that I have already probably learned how to solve. Okay, but let's solve them. 4x equals 0. How do I solve that? Well, this is multiplication. 4 times x. The inverse of multiplication is, you got it, division. So I divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, which gives me 1x, or just x, equals, well, 0 divided by 4, 0. That is one of my solutions, and let's see if it works. X equals 0. Let's see, 0 squared is 0. 0 times 4 is 0. Okay? 8 times 0 is 0. And 0 minus 0 does equal 0. So that works. That is one of my solutions. It's the value of the variable that makes this equation true. Or, there's another solution. You see, in second degree equations, we can have up to 2 real number solutions. Okay. By the way, we can also have imaginary solutions, but we won't get into those. Okay, x minus 2 equals 0. How do I solve that? Well, I need to solve for x. That means I need to get rid of a minus 2. What's the inverse of minus 2? Plus 2. Okay, if you're in debt $2, you just go out and earn $2 and now you're even, right? But I got to do that to both sides. All right, so negative 2 plus 2 cancels. It's 0 equals 0. So I am left with x equals 0 plus 2 is 2. So x equals 2 is another solution to my quadratic equation. And let's test it and see if it works. X equals 2. Everywhere I see an x here, I'm going to put a 2. You ready? 2 to the second power is 4. 4 times 4? 16. All right? Okay, x is 2. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 minus 16 does indeed equal 0. So that works. And now you might be wondering or asking yourself, okay, what does this mean? What do these solutions mean? X equals 0, x equals 2. Well, let me give you a picture of what they mean. All right. So, on the coordinate grid system, I'm just going to make a homemade coordinate grid system. So pardon my rough sketch here. Okay, this being a quadratic equation is going to form a certain kind of graph. Okay? And that graph is called a parabola. Okay? And it's going to look something like this. Okay, my solutions were at x equals 0 and at x equals 2. So at x equals 0, this is x, this is y. So right there, x equals 0, and right there, x equals 2, correct? 1, 2. Those are my two solutions. And what's cool is at those two solutions, my parabola intersects right there at the x-axis. All right? So that's x equals 0, x equals 2. These are my two solutions. These guys right here, these are called x-intercepts or roots. Kind of like the roots in a tree, right? The roots go into the ground. These are the roots of the parabola or the x-intercepts of the parabola. All right, and those have practical applications. Trust me, if it wasn't for parabolas, we wouldn't have cell phones, we wouldn't have satellites, we wouldn't have headlights on our cars, we wouldn't be able to hear the action on a football game. There are so many different variety of uses for parabolas that make your mind spin. All right, we're not going to go into those in this video, but just know the parabolas are important. Quadratic equations are important. Knowing how to solve them is important. All right? So in our next video, we're going to learn how to solve when there's a C term here. Okay? But until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. And as always, remember to subscribe to my channel so that you can get further videos. You can be notified of further videos. Until then, may God bless you, friends.